At least 23 Palestinian civilians, mostly children and women, were killed and many others injured Thursday night. And on Thursday, the Caribbean island of St. Vincent and St. Lucia celebrates the 45th anniversary of its independence with various political and cultural activities. Senegal's outgoing President Macky Sall said Thursday his mandate would end as planned on April 2nd, but left open the date of the presidential elections. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. At least 23 Palestinian civilians, mostly children and women, were killed and many others injured Thursday night as a result of Israeli airstrikes targeting residential homes in the central Gaza Strip, according to local media and medical resources. The sources reported that Israeli fighter jets targeted several houses in Deir al-Balah, including the home of Attar family, as well as Janji family home in the town of Sawaida in central Gaza. The Israeli attack resulted in the murder of at least 23 civilians and the injury of dozens more, the majority of whom were children and women. Simultaneously, medical sources reported that Israeli occupation forces once again stormed the Nasser medical complex in Khan Yunis after having withdrawn from inside it earlier. In a preliminary toll, the Palestinian death toll from Israel's deadly offensive against the Gaza Strip since October 7, 2023, has now soared to 29,410. At least 4 Palestinian civilians were killed and many others wounded Thursday southwest of Gaza City after being shot with live ammunition by Israeli occupation forces. According to a correspondent from the Wafa news agency, several of the fatalities and wounded were transported to Al-Shifa medical complex in Gaza City, while some of the injured remain stranded on the roads due to the inability of ambulances to reach them, as Israeli occupation forces continue to open fire on anyone moving in the area. The victims were among a large number of displaced civilians using the coastal road to escape the Israeli war of starvation in the northern regions of Gaza. In the Netherlands, several countries participate on Thursday in the public hearings of the International Court of Justice on the legal consequences of Israel policies and practices in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem. The Chinese representative called the Palestinian issue a litmus test for the collective conscience of humanity and demanded a comprehensive ceasefire. Meanwhile, Iran expressed that the Israeli occupation began with the illegal formation of the regime in 1948 in place of the former British Mandate of Palestine, displacing more than 700. Ireland considered that Israel's self-defense exceeds the limits of international law, while Jordan stated that Israel must end its occupation of all occupied Palestinian territories, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem in Gaza. During an interview for teleSUR, Cuban Deputy Foreign Minister Ana Rodriguez said that the appealing to the International Court of Justice is a fundamental step in the face of the United States opposition to the ceasefire against Palestine.
The International Court of Justice is precisely the highest international tribunal or judicial body of the United Nations, and appealing to that court is an essential step in times where, for example, instances such as the United Nations Security Council have been unable to fulfill their mandate and have demonstrated a pathological incapacity to act precisely because of the sustained veto of the United States, which is one of its permanent members.
In another part of the interview, Rodriguez stressed that the international community had also failed to guarantee the right to self-determination of the Palestinian people.
I believe that we should expect from the court a solid, transparent, conclusive, and consistent ruling in defense of international law. The advisory opinion issued by the court must be up to the historic and very serious moment we are living in, which the international community, as I was saying, the United Nations, has not been able to guarantee the right to self-determination of the Palestinian people.
The Deputy Foreign Minister emphasized that in order to achieve a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, a real determination by the United Nations Security Council is needed.
To achieve a ceasefire, the United Nations Security Council should show a real political will to help stop the genocide now being committed against Palestine. Multilateralism was and must be built on the basis of the respect for the UN Charter and the principles of international law.
The Cuban diplomat also assured that there was a clear evidence of a crisis of multilateralism within that United Nations body, given the United States' veto on the ceasefire.
I believe that in this case, rather than an evidence of a crisis of multilateralism, which is undoubtedly happening in these complex times, what we are witnessing is the result of the isolated and unilateral action by the state that is preventing a multilateral solution to a peremptory issue on the international agenda.
In condemnation of the ongoing genocidal war of the Zionist occupation regime against Gaza, worldwide support for the just Palestinian cause is growing. The ongoing review by the International Court of Justice of the legality of the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories, as well as the many global acts of solidarity with the Palestinian people, are evidence of this reality. Let's see.
Under the slogan "Stop the Aggression and Genocide of the Zionist Occupier," and as part of a growing world solidarity with the Palestinian people, Damascus hosted an act of support to the neighbors of Gaza against the Israeli war of extermination they have been suffering for almost 5 months. The ceremony was organized by the Palestinian forces residing in Syria and was attended by representatives of the Syrian government and people and the heads of numerous diplomatic missions accredited in the Arab country, including the representation of Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran.
The Palestinian people are a resilient people. They are great people who managed with their firmness and audacity to humiliate the Israeli occupier, and we, the Arab peoples, including the Syrian people, express our full solidarity with them and praise their firmness and ratify our readiness to support their struggle with money and with our lives, the lives of our children, and with everything we have.
In parallel, and as a result of this popular and governmental support for the just Palestinian cause, the International Court of Justice is conducting a historical review of the legality of the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories in a process requested by the United Nations General Assembly, whose hearings end next Monday, February the 26th, and during which the court will examine the legal consequences of the continued violation by the Israeli occupying entity of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, and analyze the evidence presented by some 50 countries and various organizations amid increasing pressure to halt Israel's genocidal war against Gaza.
The fact of expanding Israeli aggressions beyond the borders of Gaza and attempts to escalate the tension in Syria and in other countries of the region should constitute an incentive to activate the International Court of Justice and also the world community to condemn the Israeli crimes and prosecute Israel not only for its crimes in Gaza but also in the whole of Palestine, in Syria, and in the whole region. I believe that as long as the U.S. continues to support Israel, the Israeli occupation will continue to be able to evade all kinds of pressure, be it legal, popular or other pressures, but at the same time, the fact of continuing with this pressure in the legal and popular aspect will contribute to isolate Israel and also isolate the U.S. administration for its misguided policy of unconditionally supporting the Israeli occupation entity.
Meanwhile, popular marches of rejection and condemnation of the Zionist war of extermination against Gaza continue in various capitals of the world, including those countries which governments support the Israeli occupation regime. A growing popular movement in favor of the Palestinian cause, coupled with governmental action by many nations around the world, is expected to help the Palestinians put an end to their suffering under occupation and recover their usurped rights.
teleSUR Oriente Medio.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Thursday, the first ministerial meeting of the G20 under Brazilian presidency held its second and last day of work as part of the activities prior to the summit that will join the heads of state and government in November. In the framework of working meeting, European Union's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell assured that the G20 foreign ministers agreed on the need for a two-state solution as the only way to peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. On the other hand, the Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov called on the structures of the regions of the Global South to participate in the G20 while reiterating his support for the candidatures of Brazil and India, with the interests of the African state jointly assured. In this sense, the Russian leader called on the integration of the Global South to participate fully in the work of the G20. Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira informed that during the preparatory meeting for the G20 summit, member countries unanimously supported the existence of two states in Palestine.
There were several requests for the immediate release of humanitarian access in Palestine, and there were calls for a cessation of hostilities. Many positioned themselves against the announced Israeli operation in Rafah and called on the Israeli government to reconsider and suspend this decision immediately. The support for the two-state solution was also unanimously highlighted as the only possible solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Likewise, the head of Brazilian diplomacy stressed the need to reform multilateral institutions to adapt to global challenges.
The global governance reform was discussed, which for Brazil is urgent and a priority, and all agreed on the fact that the main multilateral institutions, the UN, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, among others, need partial reform to adapt to the challenges of today's world.
At a press conference after the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Brazil, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov calls the reaction of Western countries to the death of Alexei Navalny hysterical, adding that Western officials have no right to interfere in their internal affairs.
They act like both the prosecutor and the judge, and as the executor of punishments, and all this in one. All this hysteria over the death of Navalny has shown this convincingly, and I don't even want to comment about this in detail. These people have no right to interfere in our internal affairs. No, I was not looking for these contacts. They apparently followed the agreement to avoid contacts with our delegation in every possible way. Well, let them be trapped in their own ways. In fact, they have been doing this for a long time.
Давно они уже этим занимаются.
Argentina's presidential spokesman Manuel Adorni announced the closure of the National Institute Against Discrimination, Xenophobia and Racism, INADI, and anticipated that it will be the first of the other agencies to be eliminated during the current administration. Adorni justified the measure based on an alleged excess of bureaucracy. He also assured that these and other agencies have often had the particularity of being led by officials that are qualified of doubtful quality. The spokesman stated that the closing of certain agencies will be by decree, but not in others it will be enough, with the decision made by each minister according to the structures and numbers of workers. The disappearance of INADI provoked a controversy since several politicians began to explain that Milei does not have the legal faculties to carry out this measure. In Haiti, concerns are growing in the wake of the U.S. interference in the internal affairs of the country as it seeks to allegedly halt the escalating violence in the Caribbean nation. Members of political organizations give their opinion.
What we Haitians are living through is not easy. We helped many nations fight for their independence, including the United States. But today it's the United States government that is against us. Seeking to destroy us, physically and morally. The U.S. power structure dumps guns and drugs in Haiti. If they really want to change here, they could help us. They don't. We're not against the U.S. people. We're just asking for a chance. We're exhausted. We don't have true independence. We're fighting to determine our own destiny. Every nation deserves freedom. We don't want no one stepping on us. We are the sons and daughters of Africa and of the land. We will never lose the battle, ever onward to victory.
On Thursday, the Caribbean island of St. Lucia celebrates the 45th anniversary of its independence with various political and cultural activities. Precisely on February 22, 1979, St. Lucia became an independent state of the Commonwealth of Nations associated with the United Kingdom. In this sense, local organized meetings to remember and maintain their cultural legacy and their community spirit that symbolize the island's colonial history and resistance. For this Caribbean island, this celebration is a continuous journey towards growth and unity. It is worth noting that in St. Lucia in July 2021, the Labour Party won the general elections led by Philippe J. Pierre, who became the 9th Prime Minister of the island nation. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Presidential elections. Welcome back to From the South. Senegal's outgoing president Macky Sall said Thursday his mandate would end as planned on April 2nd, but left open the date of the presidential elections, which he postponed earlier this month. Sall had faced a growing clamor to set a date for the vote after his abrupt delay to February 25th election triggered weeks of political crisis. The outgoing president had announced the election delay hours before official campaigning was due to begin, with parliament backing the move despite strong opposition and then setting a new election date for mid-December. The opposition denounced Sall's move as a constitutional coup, saying his party feared defeat at the ballot box. The delay plunged the traditionally stable West African country into its worst political crisis in decades and sparked unrest that has left 4 people dead. During a televised press interview, Sall said the date for the election will be decided after a political dialogue he intends to conduct as of Monday. In Spain, protests in the agricultural sector were marked on Wednesday by controversial clashes between farmers and riot police. The rural sector converged in Madrid at the gates of the Ministry of Agriculture, where they were affected by confrontations and aggressions. Even the journalists who were on the scene. In addition, they lived moments of tensions with the police as they cordoned off the area and used force to contain the demonstrators. For their part, farmers and ranchers demand from the government an increase in subsidies, an end to unfair competition from products coming from the third countries, and the suspension of environmental and animal protection regulations. In France, the poor condition of the Eiffel Tower and inefficient economic management are the main complaints raised this Thursday by the General Confederation of Labour and Workers' Force Union on the 4th consecutive day of the monument that has been closed for a strike. The unions of the General Confederation of Labour denounced the existence of an ambitious and unstable economic model due to an underestimation of budgets and overestimation of income. The monument is one of the biggest tourist attractions of the country, which receives annually about 5 million visitors, which generates a very large income system. In this sense, the Guild demands the renovation of the painting of the tower, considering that it has become more expensive after having found lead that complicates the operation. The Spanish emergency services declared that firefighters were battling a huge fire raging through a multi-story residential block in the eastern port city of Valencia on Thursday. Images showed flames and vast clouds of black smoke engulfing the building, with 22 teams of firefighters battling high winds to tackle the blaze, the 112 emergency services said. In a post on X, the emergency services assured 7 people had been lightly injured, a minor, 3 adults and 3 firefighters, most of them suffering from smoke inhalation. They said the fire started on the 4th floor and had rapidly spread. Spain's public television said there were more than 130 flats in the building, which was 14 stories high, saying it had been reduced to a skeleton, with a nearby building also consumed by the flames. It was also said that medics had set up a field hospital nearby. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.